I'm Ryan O'Doud, and you're listening to Ryan's Audiobooks on the Issues Magazine YouTube channel. Now, today we're starting a new book, 15.1, The Emerald Tablet 101, A Modern Practical Guide, Plain and Simple, by Matthew Barnes. Now, this book, editor's note, this book is both a translation and an interpretation of the Emerald Tablet. So, I'm going to actually read the foreword because I feel like it's relevant to the way the book is being interpreted. Normally, I would just let the book stand for what it is, but this is really closer to an actual authored book because the original Emerald Tablet is quite short, and this expands, poetically expands upon it quite a bit, but I feel like it's a really good translation and interpretation and, let's say, inspired work based on the Emerald Tablet. In the future, I'll just call it the Emerald Tablet 101. So, I'm starting, as I said, at the foreword, written by the author, skipping the dedication. Introduction. The Emerald Tablet, also known as the Smaragdine Tablet, is an ancient artifact purportedly molded out of a single piece of green crystal. On the tablet is written 14 cryptic sentences that are said to sum up the secret to alchemy. According to the legend surrounding the Emerald Tablet, a man named Balines discovered the tablet in a vault below the statue of Hermes Trismegistus, an ancient Egyptian philosopher who is credited with being the author of the tablet. Inside the vault was an old corpse, possibly Hermes, on a golden throne. In the hands of the corpse was held the Emerald Tablet. There are other variations to this story, but this is the general gist of the tablet's legendary discovery. There are now many different variations and interpretations of the writings in the Emerald Tablet. No two interpretations are identical, and there seems to be no way to know for certain exactly how the original interpretation was worded. However, the basic meaning of the different writings seems to be about the same. Alchemy is the ancient belief that through chemical transformation, similar to the chemical transformations found in modern chemistry, one could turn a base element like lead or mercury into something much more precious like gold. I believe that this alchemical process is not meant to be taken literally, but is instead symbolic of the process and progression of a lower human consciousness into something much higher and more expansive. Instead of alchemy representing a literal transformation of a base metal like lead or mercury into gold, I believe it represents the transformation of a base human being, ignorant and full of ego, into something of a higher nature, a spiritually matured, knowledgeable, compassionate, and enlightened human being. In most spiritual traditions, there seems to be an outer teaching that is taught to the masses and a secret inner teaching that's reserved for the inner circle of students. The outer teachings tend to include the basics of that particular religion's beliefs, as well as rules for being nice to each other, or at least decent. In Christianity, for example, the outer teachings include the Ten Commandments, the Golden Rule, and other guidelines for proper behavior. The inner teachings in all religions are said to be what was taught from teacher to student within the inner circle. These teachings tended to be closely guarded secrets. If they were written down, they were typically written in a code that only the members of the inner circle or those who were ready for the teachings would be able to decipher. The inner teachings offered instruction that went far beyond the simple outer teachings as taught to the masses. These inner teachings were typically more advanced studies on the ultimate reality of life, as opposed to the simple instructions on proper behavior as taught to those outside of the inner circle. A simple example of the difference between the inner teachings and the outer teachings is the idea of jihad, as found in the Islamic religion. In general, jihad refers to a holy war that we are all meant to partake in, and for which there is great reward. Many Muslim adherents take this to mean a true physical war, complete with gruesome violence against all non-believers. But the inner teaching is what the jihad is actually a war within you, a war between what is good and right within you versus your inner darkness. Another way of expressing this idea is that the inner war is between your self-centered ego and your higher self. This inner jihad is a war that we are all engaged in at all times. It is the war we are here to fight, not a war with other people, but a war within ourselves. It's our ultimate destiny to take on and eventually defeat the darkness within us. Once freed from this darkness, we experience the nirvana or heaven promised to us in these many different religions, a reward so far beyond anything we can comprehend that no words could adequately describe its allure. Thus, along with instruction on how to go about this war, is the inner teaching on jihad. I believe the 14 cryptic sentences on the Emerald Tablet to be a code written in symbolic language that only an initiate or inner student of Hermetic philosophy would be able to understand. Writing these teachings in code was meant to protect the teachings from those that were not yet ready for such information. I believe the 14 statements of the tablet, once understood, basically sum up the inner teachings of the ancient Egyptian philosophy of Hermes Trismegistus, which have been passed down from teacher to student over the centuries. I am not alone in this view. The name Hermes Trismegistus basically means Hermes the Thrice Great. This was the Egyptian way of expressing just how highly they thought of this man and his teachings. He and his teachings were so regarded that the Egyptians equated Hermes with their god Thoth, and the Greeks equated him with their god Mercury. Hermes had been a lifelong student of both science and religion. He felt both subjects to be essentially the same pursuit, the pursuit of knowledge. Religion was the study of God, while science was the study of what God had created. Ultimately, both students' studies pointed to the same truth: the presence of an underlying intelligence among the workings of the world. This world is not randomly put together, and for Hermes, this indicated an intelligence of some kind. Religions tend to personify this intelligence. They like to give this intelligence a face and a form and a name. They like to define this intelligence, speak for this intelligence, and punish those who oppose their particular teachings on this intelligence. Religion often breeds intolerance. Scientists can be just as bad. The more they learn of the world, the more they somehow seem to lose the mystery of it. The more they think they can explain, the less mysterious life seems to be for them. It is as if understanding the mechanisms behind a miracle somehow makes the miracle less miraculous or special. If, for example, a scientist can plot out and understand how an egg and a sperm can come together to form an embryo, and how that embryo forms and grows, then somehow this knowledge diminishes the appreciation for the miracle of birth. Science often breeds arrogance. These two studies, science and religion, are often at odds with each other. They both seem to feel they operate on opposite sides of a spectrum, and each group feels that they alone represent the correct pursuit. For Hermes, this was not the case. He saw the two approaches as one and the same, simply two different angles of studying and searching for the intelligence behind the workings of the world. Unlike many of our modern religions, Hermes claimed that the intelligence that we called God could not truly be named, for it was beyond names. It could not be drawn, for it was beyond form. It could not even be understood, for it was beyond anything we could yet as comprehend as humans. Speaking for it was something none of us had the understanding to do. Taking another's word as the gospel truth was just as erroneous. This intelligence is something each one of us must experience in order to have the slightest understanding of its nature. Unlike many scientists, Hermes saw in the pursuit of scientific knowledge the proof of this intelligence's hand in every single aspect of life. Only chaos was an accident. In life there was order, and order demanded intelligence. From the rhythm of the seasons to the routine and predictable routes of celestial objects, there was order. From the cohesion of atomic particles and the miracle of birth and the life cycle of all living things, Hermes saw order and therefore intelligence. Science was proof. The more Hermes learned about the impeccable order of the universe, the more he saw within it the hand of order and design. The more he understood about the workings of the world, the more miraculous it became for him, not less, as is so often the case with so many scientists. Eventually, the knowledge and understanding Hermes obtained over many periods of study and deep contemplation culminated in a vision he had of the intelligence of this world. From that point forward, he claimed to be reborn, born again, enlightened, awake. He had transcended the limits of his mind and had come to understand the ultimate truth of this world. He claimed that the experience he had was transformational in a way we human beings could not yet comprehend. As such, he went about trying to teach others the knowledge that he believed would lead to the same vision and subsequent awakening as he was so lucky to have experienced. Hermes had found, through direct experience, the soul of the world, quote unquote. He had witnessed creation and was taught that all and was He had witnessed creation and was taught the meaning of life. The Egyptians believed this knowledge transformed him into a god among men, and that with the same knowledge and effort you could do the same. The overall goal of the ancient Egyptian teachings of Hermes, as summed up in the Emerald Tablet, was to enlighten each individual student with a specific knowledge that would eventually and ultimately lead to direct experience with the truth of this world. This direct experience is the core goal of Hermes' philosophy. Each person must have their own direct experience with, quote, the soul of the world to even come close to understanding it. There is no relying on what another person has said or claimed. Reading scriptures and hearing other people contemplate God and heaven are all second-hand experiences that are no substitute for direct knowledge. Taking another's word for the divine nature of this world falls far short of the magnificence of the actual experience. Actual experience is proof beyond a doubt, whereas faith alone is simply taking the word of another. It is second-hand belief. After having studied the other writings of Hermetic philosophy for many years, I believe it is possible to understand and decipher the code of the Emerald Tablet, which is what I am trying to do in this short book. Hermes' teachings are recorded mostly in a work called the Hermetica. He is also credited with writing the Emerald Tablet. In the end, scholars believe both works were probably written by Hermes, not by Hermes, but by several other authors who were familiar with his teachings. The Kybalion is another possible Hermetic work that represents core Hermetic teachings. However, this work was published by a group called the Three Initiates in 1912, long after the time of Hermes. The Three Initiates claim the Kybalion represents the inner teachings of Hermes, and that had, until that point, only been passed down from teacher to student over thousands of years. The writers of the Kybalion also claim that there had been a book by the same name that was given only to inner students, called Initiates, of the Hermetic teachings, and that the version of the Kybalion that they were publishing simply covered a few of the more simple yet core inner teachings. There were many other works representing Hermes' philosophy that were evidently destroyed by intolerant religions many years ago. To better understand why I interpreted the Emerald Tablet the way I did in this book, it would be helpful for you to also read my interpretation of the Hermetica, and maybe the Kybalion. These are short books, although longer than this one, that go into more detail on the vision of Hermes and the overall Hermetic philosophy. I named my books the Hermetica 101 and the Kybalion 101. Although largely unknown in the West today, it cannot be overemphasized how influential the ancient Egyptian philosophy espoused by Hermes has been, mostly uncredited, on our modern discoveries, our modern thought system, and even our modern religions. Hermes taught that in his vision he saw directly that at least part of the purpose of human life was to create and explore, as the intelligence that created this world and also us creates and explores. Creating and exploring is what we like to do and what we are meant to do. Science and God are not at odds. Science is simply the study of what God created. When one does not agree with the other, it is due to our limited understanding. Exploring this world through observation, scientific study, and the arts are all joyful for us as human beings because it is at our core. We were made in the image of that which created us, and as it finds joy in exploration and creation, so do we. This teaching is in direct and stark contrast with many religious views that science and religion are at odds, and that all one needs to know is the Bible of their religion. Searching and exploring outside of this holy book is often considered sacrilege. This is especially true of the early Christian and Islamic religions that banned the Hermetic teachings and burned their books. The Hermetic belief that we are here to create and explore was the impetus behind countless modern discoveries, and many scientists and great thinkers of the past have credited Hermes with being the foundation of their belief system. In fact, throughout history, when the teachings of Hermes were allowed, society flourished, as happened in the Renaissance, where spiritual and scientific curiosity was encouraged. Hermetic philosophy was considered the driving force behind the Renaissance or rebirth, where free thought, creativity, and exploration were encouraged. The famous Library of Alexandria is a prime example of the open-minded exploration of this time. This library contained countless books from countless foreign nations espousing theories and belief systems that were fervently and openly explored and debated. During this time, society flourished. The intolerant early Christian church disagreed with this philosophy, believing that all that we should be exposed to would be found in the Bible. As a result, the books were burned, the Library of Alexandria was destroyed, and those working in the library were tortured and put to death. Dark times ensued. The Emerald Table is reported to have been buried around 400 AD to protect it from religious zealots who wanted to destroy it. Ironically, many of the teachings found in our modern religions can be traced back to the ancient Egyptian views of Hermes. Modern religions have, in very many cases, adopted the teachings and philosophies that Hermes espoused, but inserting their own heroes and their own specific vocabulary representing their teaching into the individual religions. This fact is mostly unknown to the proponents of these modern religions. According to Hermetic teachings, we as humans grow in consciousness and compassion over time. We start out our journeys as humans full of ego and individual concern. Over time, and possibly over many lifetimes, we eventually ripen and mature into a being of a higher nature. This is alchemy. Once we ripen and mature to a certain point, it is time to move on to the next realm after death. By this philosophy, there is no good or bad, there is only mature and not yet mature. Those of us who seem good have simply matured more. Those of us who seem bad are simply not yet ripened. We all make this journey, so there is no room for judgment or feeling superior. Those who are fairly advanced now were once just as ignorant and angry and self-centered as those who are not as of yet at this heightened level. Over time, our understanding, our consciousness, and our compassion expands beyond our individual self and individual concerns. We are all on this journey. We all eventually make this trip. The ultimate goal of the Hermetic teachings is to speed up this evolution so that we may pass on to the next realm sooner. Additionally, expanding your consciousness may also lead to a direct experience with the quote soul of the world in this lifetime, which will transform your life here and now, taking you to a life beyond suffering and the human concerns that now drive you to anger and fear. If you knew that you were divine and would go on after death, what could possibly shake your peace of mind? If you knew without a doubt that you were safe, what could possibly make you fret? Money, illness, social status? These things are as nothing when you see the truth, says Hermes, but what could possibly upset you? With this knowledge, you become the master of your own life, not the servant. You become as if a god among men. This is the ultimate goal of the Emerald Tablet, the Hermetica, and the Kybalion. That is the end of the introduction. An editor's note. I feel like I need to put this here since I've just read some conjecture and opinion. I don't necessarily endorse what Matthew Barnes believes about the Emerald Tablet. I don't necessarily endorse his translation. I merely find it useful and often poetically beautiful towards assisting to or offering me perspective on what I already know. So keep that in mind when you're going forward. Moving on. A traditional interpretation. The following represents a very typical interpretation of the Emerald Tablet, which is why I chose it. If you wish to be exposed to other interpretations, see the references at the end of the book. 1. Truth, most certain, beyond doubt. 2. As above, so below, as within, so without. in order for the miracles of the one thing to be performed. 3. As all things have been and arose from the one, so all things have their birth from this one thing, by transformation. 4. The sun is its father, the moon is its mother, the wind has carried it in its belly, the earth is its home. 5. Its force of power is entire, if it be converted into earth. 6. Separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, with great care and diligence. 7. It rises from the earth to heaven and then falls back again to the earth, receiving the power of both heaven and earth. 8. By this means you will rule the world. 9. And all darkness and ignorance will leave you. 10. Its power is above all power, for it creates and destroys every single thing, and penetrates everything as well, subtle and solid alike. 11. By this means was the world founded. 12. And hence come the miraculous adaptations. 13. I am called Hermes Trismegistus, having understood the 3 parts of the philosophy of the world. 14. I am done explaining the solar work. Thus concludes that section. Moving on. My interpretation. In this chapter, I break down the traditional interpretation included in Chapter 1, explaining each statement line by line. Remember that this is my interpretation of the Emerald Tablet based on my understanding of the Hermetic philosophy. To better understand my interpretation, in any interpretation really, it's helpful to have some background knowledge of the other Hermetic writings. My 2 other books on this ancient Egyptian philosophy, the Hermetica 101 and the Kabbalion 101, are available if you need or want them. There are many other viewpoints and interpretations of the Emerald Tablet, ranging from much more esoteric to much more scholarly. If you're interested in other viewpoints and interpretations, there are countless other books and even internet sites that you can browse. I've listed my favorite webpage for this work in the reference section at the end of this book. As I have done in my other works, I do not try to give a scholarly, historically accurate interpretation of these writings. Instead, what I am after is the big picture. I am after the ultimate meaning. I'm attempting to capture the essence of what the Emerald Tablet is trying to say as I understand it. If I do not seem interested in following a traditional interpretation that may be more scholarly or historically accurate, it's because I truly am not interested in that kind of interpretation. I simply want to put forth what I think the writing means in the simplest, most modern, and understandable concepts I can come up with. Quote, "Seek not to walk in the footsteps of the wise, seek what they sought," by Basho. Moving on. Editor's note. As he just said, from here on out, we're talking line by line interpretations. So he's going to give you just the line, and then he's going to expand and expound upon that in poetic form. 1. Truth most certain beyond doubt. I, Hermes Trismegistus, will now tell you the truth of this world. This truth I am about to reveal to you does not come from idle speculation, nor is it simply my opinion or some fanciful theory I heard from another, or read in a book or sacred scripture. No, the truth I now reveal to you comes from direct experience, from direct knowledge. As such, it is beyond the idle debate of the masses. What follows is simply and utterly, undeniably and absolutely the ultimate truth of this world, for I have seen it. 2. As above, so below. As within, so without, in order for the miracle of the one thing to be performed. Within and beyond this world is an intelligence that cannot yet be fathomed or even imagined. I have seen this intelligence, and though many would call it God, there are no words for what it truly is. for it is beyond conception, and no name or description could do it justice. It is formless, yet has form. It has no substance, yet it does. It seems as if it is a great light of awareness or consciousness that is completely beyond anything that could even be imagined. There's nothing in this world to compare it to. This intelligence is both within you and all around you, both in this world and in the next. It exists in a realm just beyond the one that we now know, yet its essence and intelligence permeates this world as well, creating and animating all that is. Beyond the existence of all that you know, and all that you do not know, is the one thing, this light, this consciousness, this awareness, this intelligence. There is but one substance in all of existence, and this is it. It is for this reason that I say what lies beyond this world is the same as that which lies within this world, and that what lies within you is the same as that which surrounds you. It is all the same base substance, or dimension. It is all the light made manifest in a multitude of different forms. The world is divine and an absolute miracle if you could but see. The miracle continues into the construct of the material world. As I witnessed the whole to be no different than the part, the world is constructed of a holographic unity that repeats itself in an endlessly infinite continuum, on grander and lesser scales in every direction forever. That which exists on the greater scale is mirrored by that which exists on the smaller scale. That which exists at the macroscopic level is mirrored by that which exists at the microscopic level. Let me explain. The atom is the most basic and most fundamental building block of life. The atoms that we are familiar with are infinite and clumped together to create the world we know. Every single structure, every single form. Our atoms ultimately come together to form a larger atom, the solar system, whose nucleus is the sun and whose electrons are the planets orbiting endlessly about. Our solar system is but one atom out of an infinite number of atoms that also come together, creating an even larger universe, or realm, or dimension, whose scale is beyond comprehension. In the opposite direction, we have within each of our atoms another universe, or realm, or dimension, made up of smaller atoms, likewise infinite in number, beyond our ability to sense or fathom. Within each of those atoms is yet another universe, or dimension, or realm, made up of even smaller atoms, likewise infinite in number, likewise beyond our ability to sense or even fathom. At each level, is there a world or dimension vibrating at a frequency and existing on a scale that we cannot detect or hardly imagine? Do you yet see the miracle? Do you yet see the ladder of life repeated endlessly in ever larger and even smaller units, expanding into eternity in either direction forever, creating worlds and dimensions without end? All the worlds are separate, yet in reality all are one continuous unity, all being made out of this one thing, this one substance, this one intelligence that is beyond names and beyond forms, yet is the root of all names and the root of all forms. What it is the soul of the world. As it is the next world, so is this world. As is the larger world, so is the smaller world. As is the inner world, so is the outer world. All is separate, yet somehow at the same time all is one, all is the same. Such is the construct of this great, mysterious, and magical world, whose origin is an intelligence beyond that of which we can scarcely conceive. And that ends sentence 2 from the Emerald Tablet. And it also ends 15:1 of the Emerald Tablet 101 by Matthew Barnes. We'll pick up next time with sentence 3 of his interpretation of the Emerald Tablet in the Emerald Tablet 101. I will see you then. Alam.